We have a lot of work to get our RB20 fired up for the first time. Let's get started on our R32 GTS-T. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Throttle YouTube channel. My name is Quinn. I'm here with Mickey, and in today's episode, we're gonna get our RB fired up and started running.
Yes,
we're gonna have
sir.
a running Skyline again. We have a lot of really cool parts going on.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a heap of stuff from PRP here. These boys are over in Australia, and they eat, breathe, and live RB motors. Let's get into it a little bit. Obviously, as you know, Quinn, RB motors have inherent issues, mainly oiling, and cam and crank pickups are not ideal. Yep. So why don't we show them what we got to alleviate those issues.
Okay, so we have a cam and crank trigger kit to start out with. RBs only have one cam position sensor and no crank position sensor. This is going to replace the cam position sensor with an upgraded one, and this is also going to allow us to install a crank position sensor, which is really good. We're going to be able to get more accurate timing for fuel and ignition with our Link ECU on this engine. So it's going to make it a lot nicer to drive. It's going to make it run better, run smoother.
Right, and to take a step back, we actually also installed an N1 oil pump on this.
Correct. So this is not a high power drag build. This is not a track car. This is really not going to see any track time while we have it. We're going to be making about 350-ish horsepower out of this thing. So I think an N1 pump with billet gears is going to be plenty.
We really wanted to prove that you don't have to have GTR money or have a GTR R32 to have fun with an R32. You can go get a GTS-T platform with an RB20 or even an RB25 and have just as much fun.
Yep.
And you know, not spend as much money. So.
And a lot of this stuff fits RB20 and 26s and 25s and all that stuff. So a lot of this part is really universal. So we got some beauty dress-up hardware that isn't super necessary, but I think I absolutely love the look of it. We got titanium valve cover hardware. These are cam caps. I'm gonna be going with this. These are windage trays for our camshafts. It's also gonna replace the factory bolts that are on there that kind of get sticky. I had a rough time taking those apart. And these are a really nice piece by Serpentine, provided to us by PRP, of course.
We do have a bunch of dress-up stuff, as Quinn offered earlier. This is PRP's really nice, lightweight bitchin' billet radiator stays. Moving on to the ignition system, I see a bunch of components here. We've got PRP's basically coil pack mounting plate. This is going to bolt into the valley.
Yep.
And house our factory VR38s. These are out of a GTR R35. So we're upgrading the ignition system as well.
Yep, so this is going to pair really nicely with our crank position and cam position kit along with our Link standalone ECU to give us a much stronger, more efficient spark. And the timing kit is going to give us a more precise spark, which is really nice. That's a really nice harness, by the way.
It'll drop right on here, send the power to our coils, and we're going to have a really nice, clean ignition spark.
Love to see it. So as you guys can see, we have a lot of fun parts we're going to be playing with. We got a lot of work to do on this RV, so let's get started. So the first step to getting all of our PRP stuff installed is actually to get the timing belt system off the car. Now luckily when we put this together the first time, I knew all this PRP stuff was coming, so I kind of mock assembled everything. So nothing is really super tight. Everything's gonna be very easy to take off. We have to take off our crash bar, the intercooler, our AC condensers coming out for room. We gotta take our power steering pump, the AC compressor, and all the associated bracketry off. So I'm gonna start getting that stuff done, and then we'll start playing with our PRP stuff. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the Throttle YouTube channel and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss a thing. Got the front end torn off. We have a really good, clean line of sight for our RB stuff. It's gonna make it very easy to get tools in there to work on the timing belt and set up our trigger kits. So let's start taking the timing covers and the belt off. Now I'm going to show you guys a comparison on some of the parts. So this is a factory plate that holds the cam trigger wheel in position. That is this guy here, and of course we have our beautiful new PRP stuff here, which we just have to do a little bit of trimming. So I'm going to start mocking that up, figure out where we need to trim, and then start trimming. So this is our bracket for our crank position sensor. Now our sprocket here will be replaced by one that has teeth on it, and the sensor actually threads into the side here. So this little section of the oil pump is what we need to trim to allow for our sensor to poke through and pick up that trigger wheel. So we're gonna mark this, and then we're gonna start trimming this back, and then get this all finalized, bolted down. We'll have our position sensor set up. I just need to replace the crank pulley with our geared one. We've got our clearance made. It looks good for our crank position sensor. We're gonna wait till the sensor gets here. I put our crank pulley on just a little bit because when this goes on all the way, I don't think I'm gonna be able to slide the belt underneath these teeth. Now I'm gonna install our cam position trigger wheel, which is this little guy right here. We also have a hardware pack from PRP. These are titanium bolts for the cam gears, which are really cool. As soon as that's all back together, we can put our timing belt back on, make sure everything's timed, and then we'll keep jamming. What we got here, brother?
Disassembling these hoses real quick. We're gonna pull these covers off to suss out what it's gonna take to get our Hypertune slosh baffles in place. So we're not really sure what that entails at this point. Once we get them off, I'm sure it'll be pretty self-explanatory.
We just got our PRP trigger kit on the cam gears. It looks freaking epic. The hardware they have with this kit is absolutely insane. I guess it didn't come with a kit. This was a separate PRP. It's an add-on, but freaking the titanium hardware looks so cool. They're hex, and then they have a recessed Allen in it. It just looks freaking beautiful.
It's just a flex. As a machinist.
So good, yeah, especially with the clear cover. Unfortunately, it has to come right back off because I forgot we have a cam stud kit. So we actually have to pull the cams pretty much all the way out to be able to install that along with our splash shield. So cam gears have to come back off, and this plate has to come back off because the cams are gonna come up because we're replacing all of these bolts with titanium studs. Then we're gonna put our windage tray on and bolt it all back down. And then our cam gears will go back on, and then our timing belt will go back on. So keep going. Our PRP stud kit is installed with our Hypertune baffles. It looks really nice. I've got our Greddy cam gears back on, and we're gonna put our timing belt on right now. All right, our timing belt is back on, everything looks good. I had to swap out our tensioner studs for a kit by ARP. So I can't button this up until we get our crank position back. We sent it out with wiring specialties so that they could wire it into the car. So our wiring specialties harness came back, which is really cool. We're gonna get into all that really cool stuff later. One of the things we sent them is this. This is our crank position sensor from the PRP kit, and they wired it into our harness for the car, which is really cool. Our crank trigger is installed with the proper clearance. Everything looks really good. PRP stuff fits really nice, which is really cool. So now I'm gonna start throwing our covers on, get our fluid damper on, and keep going. So our PRP cam trigger and crank trigger kit is fully installed. Now we're gonna start working on the valve covers. As you guys just saw, we put the Hypertune baffle trays on the cams and they look freaking awesome, but we do have to remove the stock windage trays from the valve covers because they interfere with the new ones. Our valve covers are reinstalled, new gaskets, our PRP hardware kit is on, it looks beautiful. I tossed our breather hoses just to get them up off the table. These are probably gonna have to come off because it's gonna make it a lot easier to do our ignition coil stuff, which is really fun. We're not gonna be doing that yet. However, now that the timing belt system and all the timing kits are finalized, I can actually install the rest of the stuff, such as our AC, our power steering, and get all of that stuff set up. All of our Serpentine belt pulleys are set up. The only pulley we didn't have that came with the Greddy kit that didn't fit is actually the power steering pulley, because the ID and the spline drive are way different on RB20 and then they are with the Greddy pulley kit that came with. So we got to use the stock power steering pulley, which is unfortunate. However, we're gonna put the Serpentine belts on and hopefully all these HKS belts fit. I think the tensioner assemblies, because they're manual, I think they have enough play in them to get them around the underdrive pulley kit. So we're gonna find out in a second. So I finished up all of our PRP, our trigger kit is installed, the belt's back on, we got all of our fun stuff, ARP, belt tensioner, assembly, hardware, all the good stuff is on there. I finished it off with our HKS Serpentine belts and they look beautiful. They do fit the Greddy pulleys, which is really nice. And now we're gonna move on to the intake manifold. So a lot of the things on the intake manifold have not been finalized, just kind of thrown in for mock-up. We're gonna take it back out so we can do a final assembly on pretty much everything. We don't have gaskets, we don't have clamps on these hoses for the coolant here, we don't have our fuel injectors in, we don't have a throttle cable, throttle position sensor is not in, we don't even have the auto control valve installed yet. So we're gonna pull all this stuff off, finish that up, and then Will is actually gonna come in here. I'm gonna help him out with the engine harness. We're gonna get all of the wiring done, and then when all this stuff goes back in, it should be for the last time, which is gonna be really cool. So we got a little bit of fab work to do, a lot of bolting stuff together to do. Let's start off by taking the intake manifold off. So I've got our intake manifold pretty much set up. We got our idle air control valve, our throttle position sensor, and some other things on. I'm gonna clean this up, which is our throttle cable, and it looks old and terrible. So I'm gonna take this apart, clean it up. We'll get that mounted up. Actually, I'll put this in the car first before it goes on the manifold. And then we can start plugging in things on our engine wiring harness, which is gonna be a lot of fun. So let's keep going.
It is time to throw away in our RB20 wiring harness in our R32, and we had our friends over at Wiring Specialties send us over a custom harness. This thing is fully customizable. It has mil-spec wiring. We were able to select what ECU, what injectors, what type of sensors we have, and they really tune this in for our build. Now, if you're in the middle of one of your own builds, you can check out wiringspecialties.com and see if your harness is available on there and customize your own. And if you do that all the way up until October 15th, use code throtl and you can get 10% off of your order. So go check that out. I got excited about this wiring because it's my profession. And I misspoke. Somebody told these guys I like wires. I thought half of the harness was in one box, half of the harness was in the other. No, they actually wanted us to highlight the difference between the custom harnesses that they make for those that want that, and the people who just have these 1980s, 1990s cars that want to do almost like a resto mod and just put the OE harness back in with fresher wires, newer loom, and more protection and conductivity. Right here is the actual harness that we ordered on their site. We dropped down on the menus, said what kind of injectors, said what kind of sensors we have.
Yeah, everything.
Start to finish.
Fully customizable.
ECU that we had, all of the stuff that we're connecting to. And then this, where, like we said, if somebody's just restoring their Skyline R32 and they just needed to order the OE harness, rip and replace, super simple, they can select that option as well. Let's drop the car down. I'm gonna pull one of these guys to help me kind of lay these out and just kind of trace how our routes are gonna go throughout the engine bay to make this look super clean. So we ran the high capacity pin harness through the firewall. It's basically to the general location of the ECU, but we have already removed the ECU before I got to it. So we had to hunt this down, and now I need to change the actual board inside of this housing to meet with our new one. We have our link over there. I'm gonna take this metal housing apart, change out the board, put it back together, mount this inside of there, and then we'll be able to plug our huge capacity harness into that. So we have our map sensor hose right here. We ran it through, this used to be for an attenuator that was on the old board. A little volume knob basically for adjustments. So that hole is already there. We utilized it and put it right to the 7-bar map sensor right here.
So the original harness setup is different than what we're running because we're running a forward-facing ISR style manifold. We're gonna have to figure out kind of where the harness wants to sit. And that's gonna be one of the challenges with this is you have a lot of connectors on this. There's a few connectors we're not actually gonna be using because we don't have the systems on the intake manifold anymore. But also things are in different locations than they were on the stock manifold. So finding the length is gonna be a little challenging. So we're gonna go over the top, but Will thinks there's not gonna be enough harness length to reach some of the things we need it to reach. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have a P-clamp we want to do right here, a billet P-clamp for our breather hoses, and we wanted to just have right underneath those breather hoses another P-clamp holding the harness and then letting it kind of waterfall down to our devices. Maybe a cleaner look in general, maybe to run it how it originally does to keep it behind the block. Might be better that way anyway. So we're finding things that are already reaching with the custom harness we had made. One of the things is the starter. Quinn just finished tightening down the lugs for the starter, and I just plugged in the oil. Bam! Quite a few more things to plug in, so let's keep going.
All right, I'm tossing in our PRP VR38 coil on plug adapter plate. This is just a nice part. I love billet pieces like this. So this bolts directly to the valley in here with 3 M8 Downstar bolts that we grabbed from our Downstar kit, which 40 mil. If you guys are installing one of these yourselves, you need hardware. Man, does it look nice in the black finish. So I gotta pull these GTR VR38 coils apart, put the fuse back in here and the spring, and then PRP includes a nice new silicon boot. Oh, and spring, so we don't need the spring either. My bad. Fuse is in there. We'll pop this guy on. One of the cool things about the PRP stuff is it comes plug and play, ready to rock and roll.
So we're making really good progress with the harness. Will has to extend the flex fuel wire because it's not long enough for where we mounted the sensor, and there's a couple of other things we're not gonna be using that we're actually gonna be de-pinning. So once that's done and everything's extended, we should be good to install the intake manifold for the final time. So we're gonna take a side step away from the intake manifold, refit the entire front of the car, so our intercooler, our AC condenser, all the latching, and we're actually gonna drop our Mishimoto radiator and fan kit in. We do have a beautiful brand new Mishimoto radiator and an electric fan set, which is really nice. So we're gonna get all of this mounted up, and that way we'll have the spacing that we're looking for, and we can place our oil filter adequately without making an issue as far as mounting goes. So our Mishimoto radiator, hoses, and fan is installed, and it kind of screwed us for placing that oil filter because it takes up literally all the room against the frame rails. Ricky and I are gonna suss out back there, maybe use that spot. Probably gonna be where it ends up. Let's go up, baby. Something like that might have to be where it lands.
Where it needs to be.
Obviously we have some figuring out to do, so we'll catch you back up when we get it mounted. Our oil filter is mounted in a location that I'm happy with. It's not hanging too low, and it's also gonna be very easy to service, which is good. I'm trying to figure out a good spot to put our oil cooler. Unfortunately, due to the layout of this front end, there's really not a super good spot cosmetically to put the oil cooler. There just isn't enough room because everything is so tucked forward to the bumper. It looks really wicked, but there's not enough space for a cooler here. And if I were to put a cooler on this side, which is where you would see it through the other vent in the bumper, it would have to be angled way too much for it to really look that good. The best spot for the oil cooler is actually gonna be behind the intercooler, so I'm gonna start working on bracketry for that, get that mounted up, and then we can start running our lines. now that we have everything ready to go, we're gonna start making our lines, and then before you guys know it, we'll have the intake manifold on this thing. Our oil system on the Skyline is complete. We got the cooler mounted, we got all of our lines ran, our oil filter is in an ideal location. It's also gonna make it very simple and easy to oil prime the car because there's multiple points that we can add oil from before we start spinning the crank, which is cool. So now that that's all tidied up, I'm gonna start moving into installing the intake manifold. It's gonna be very exciting. We have a lot of hoses that are gonna be going on, coolant and vacuum, and then we can start putting our fuel rail and our injectors in, and pretty much that's gonna be about it for the mechanical side, and we can actually get really close to starting this thing. So let's keep going. It's time to install our fuel system. We're gonna be running a set of Dishworks 1200cc injectors. These guys are gonna do the job just fine. Our fuel system is complete. We have our rail, injectors, and pressure gauge installed. Our oil system is also complete. And off camera, Mickey actually installed our Greddy black FV2 blow-off valve, which is really nice. Awesome placement, looks really good. It's gonna be super fun to hear. Ricky's about to start putting on our wastegate, so let's hop it over to him.
It is time to finish our exhaust system, and for that we need this, which is our Turbo Smart wastegate. This is the last piece of the puzzle, and as you can see, I have a 120 degree, a 45 degree bend, what it looks like, and then a straight. We also have a very tiny flex pipe here, and with all these here, we should be able to finish it and move on to the next thing in the car. Now that the wastegate is intact, I'm gonna put the clamp that goes in front of it with the flex pipe is gonna be in front of that. And then from there, we'll start designing our pivot point from the end of the flex pipe to the down tube or the down pipe. So I have everything ready for Evan to start tacking everything in place. Then we'll get everything off the car again, and then Evan will be able to just sit down and take it all the way around. And that's it.
All right, it's time to weld this thing all the way around. Try to fill this big gap here.
Whoa, Ricky.
Sheesh, let's see what I can do. Now that that is all welded up, Mickey's gonna go ahead and put header wrap all around this downpipe so that all the heat stays inside the exhaust system, gets shot out this beautiful Greddy exhaust.
We finished our intake manifold system, our fuel system, all the vacuum stuff is sorted, all of our oil lines are done, and our coolant lines are done, which means mechanically this thing is ready to start. Before we start it up, we are gonna oil prime the entire engine. This thing has 0 oil in it, and the cooler and all the new stuff we put on doesn't have any oil either. So we're gonna be using Competition Nismo Racing Oil by Motul. This is a really cool product, and it's a perfect oil for our Skyline because this was developed by Motul with the Nismo Racing team. And of course, we have a Nissan Skyline here, so what a perfect car for this. If you guys want to pick up some Motul product for yourself, head to the link down in the description below. Check it out. Get some engine oil for your car, get some gear oil, whatever you need. If you have a Nissan, check out the Nismo Competition line of fluids. Beautiful product. Let's get the Skyline filled up.
Start putting some coolant in this thing.
It is time to start putting some coolant in this thing. We should definitely do that. We're just about ready to crank it and actually start building fuel pressure. The only thing we don't have is transmission fluid ends. We're gonna take this thing out, put some trans fluid in it so we don't damage the transmission, playing around with the starter and playing around with the engine running, and then we can keep going. So we are using a 7590 Motul gear oil. It is definitely our favorite gear oil around here, and pretty much everything that takes 7590 gets Motul. So if you guys want to pick some up for yourself, head down to the link in the description, change your fluid in your trans and your diff, keep your car healthy. Look at this, it did a thing.
Oh.
They brought up the whole thing. It says this ECU is disabled. Contact your ECU supplier to obtain an unlock code.
Uh-oh.
Apparently, I'm not cool enough to be allowed access to the ECU.
What are we doing there with that? What does that mean?
So there's an OK button here. I'm gonna click OK, and then we're gonna call Jimmy up.
All I'm doing is basically setting up the trigger settings to tell the ECU how to read the PRP kit.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're gonna shoot base timing. So have someone in the car to crank.
Go. I've got no marks.
Okay, so you don't see anything?
Nope. 0.
Okay, perfect.
Go. You're about at the 4th mark now. I think there's 6 marks.
So we're getting closer, right?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. All right, give that a shot. Let me know if we got it.
Go. That's dead nuts. 0.
Dead nuts. Perfect. Okay, cool. So let's get the injectors plugged in and the spark plugged in.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, I think we should, be ready to try and start it when you guys are ready.
All right, we've got everything plugged in, ready to go. We've got Jimmy on the other end of the phone here on his computer, looking through our computer and our ECU. And Will's in the car. He's about to give this thing a key on, see how she goes. Here we are.
Send it. Let's go, dude.
I can't hear you. Jimmy, just let us know what you want us to do here. What's the AFR?
AFR is 17. We're way advanced on timing too. 15 currently. 11, now it's 11, 10. 10-6, 10-7. We're also really advanced on the timing. We're not even at 0.
That's a wrap. It started.
It ran.
It ran.
It ran good.
It ran.
First try.
Huge win. We spent essentially our whole day basically tidying this thing up to get ready to get on the phone with Jimmy, who was amazing, by the way. He waited pretty much all day. It's 8 o'clock our time here. It's 11 o'clock where he is. So huge shout out to him for bearing with us, walking us through this and getting this thing fired up pretty much the first try.
Yeah, it was pretty intuitive too. The PRP stuff, the whole link ECU, standalone harness. Typically it's a mission to get one of these things to fire up, but in this case,
Fuel system
really
was
easy.
great from Deechworks. So huge shout out to all of our sponsors and supporters that helped us get this car to this point. And we know it's been a long road, and you guys have bared with us for a while as this thing got shelved for a little while we did some sweepstakes cars and other things. But it's back in full swing now. Huge shout out to Wiring Specialties. They knocked that harness out for us in like no time flat. Wired in all our PRP stuff, so it's seamless integration with all of the updated stuff from PRP, which is amazing. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been fun so far, and we can't wait to get this thing on the rollers and actually get on a long call with Jimmy where we're gonna actually tune this thing. So you guys are gonna have to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for that. It's gonna be coming up pretty soon. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button, leave us some comments, like the video. We'll see you guys later.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back.
Sorry. I'll leave that out.
Our valve covers are on and torqued. Everything looks really good with that. Brand new gaskets. Everything looks beautiful, including Ricky. Our valve covers are on. F me, dude. Oh, I hit him. I nailed it, dude.
Man, who put the pressure regulator down here? That was stupid. Was that me? Did I do that?